All right, this is Your Place's Call. You are listening to episode 4 of Theatrical Thoughts. My name is Emily Wyrwa.
And I'm Jessica Feit.
And today we are so excited to be joined by Broadway's Zachary Noah Piser and Adam Rothenberg. Zach was most recently the alternate in Evan Hansen as Evan, while Adam was most recently conducting for the recent revival of Company on Broadway.
Thank you both so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
We are so excited to finally have you guys on. This is really exciting for us. So thank you guys so much for taking the time.
Of course.
Zach, are you drinking tea right now too?
I am drinking tea.
We all have tea.
I have water. I don't drink tea, but
you know, I'm not usually a big tea drinker, but his whole family drinks lots of tea, so this is where we are now. Also, it should be said for anyone watching, if you hear little nibbles on Bones, it is not us. It is actually our puppy that is right behind Scout. Her face is right there.
Cutie.
Scout is 5 months old and has a lot of opinions on theater. all things theater and the way we teach it and the way we perform it. So she'll probably jump in at some point and share her theatrical thoughts.
Yes, but this is her podcast debut, so I'm very curious to see what she does. I don't know. She might toot. I don't know what she's gonna do, but it's probably gonna be cute.
She's precious. Is she named after To Kill a Mockingbird, Scout, or?
Great question.
I mean, kind of, yeah. When we got her, she was originally Pickle. That was the name that was given. Yeah, she was rescued from Oklahoma, and they called her Pickle. And we spent a couple of weeks with her and decided that she was not a pickle. She's way too adventurous and serious. And the last show that we saw pre-pandemic was To Kill a Mockingbird, the revival, because I think they had a Monday night show.
Yeah, they had a Monday night show.
And so we both had off that night. We went to go see it, and that was the week that everything shut down. So it felt right.
There she is.
It felt right to name our doggo after the show.
Remember the times where we could actually see shows?
I don't. It feels like wherever I go.
It's almost about to be a year, which is insane.
Yeah.
Insanity.
Yeah.
Totally crazy. But yeah, Scout has been giving us lots of joy, brings us joy, so we are going to keep her. Yeah, she's the best.
What's it like raising a puppy in the middle of quarantine? I cannot fathom that.
Honestly, I don't know how we would have done it during normal times, just because, especially with a theater schedule and you don't know, am I going to be gone all day for rehearsal, or am I going to be gone at night with a 2-month-old thing, being able to take care of them and really provide the structure that they need when they're that young. I'm kind of grateful that this happened during the pandemic for us.
I've wanted a puppy since I came out of the womb. My family's deathly allergic to dogs, so I've actually never been able to have my own puppy. But Adam and I, as soon as we met, 7 years ago, I was like, dogs are the most important thing in my life. And I must have a dog ASAP, and it took us this long, but I'm glad that we waited until this moment. I'm glad we didn't do it at the top of quarantine, because if we had done it, then we would have been, with that group of people that just didn't really know what they were doing. So we were able to kind of look at all the research that was being done on getting a puppy and how to make sure you don't screw up the puppy in the time. And we've been really fortunate that some of our friends in the building who live in our complex actually also got puppies at the exact same time. So we all socially distance, on the roof or outside, we'll just let our puppies play. So it's the socialization was the biggest thing we were worried about, but she's great. She's not, I don't think we've wrecked her up too bad as she eats her bed.
Yep. Silver linings of the pandemic.
Yes, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, if you've listened to any of our previous episodes, we do a 60-second life story with our guests, where you basically just, in 60 seconds, tell us about your life story. So who would like to go
Zach
first?
would love to go
Adam
first.
would like to go first.
No, I think oh, no. Okay, all right, fine. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to set a timer for myself, really hold myself accountable.
Even better.
Even holding yourself accountable.
All right, here we go. So just my life story, what?
Yeah.
Your whole life story. Don't leave out the awesome parts.
Okay, here we go. I just started the time and I'm already stressed. Okay, so I was born in Syracuse, New York. I am an upstate boy. I grew up playing the piano when I was 4 years old is when I started, I think. I was really, really into the classical world, really, really into Beethoven and Bach and Brahms and all that stuff, but then secretly a theater kid on the side. And then I went to college. I went to Northwestern where I met Zach. I studied piano and math. And then I decided while I was there that maybe classical music wasn't it, really fell in love with theater, but then I went to grad school for classical music because why not? I went to Juilliard to do my master's in New York City. While I was doing my master's, I started subbing in Broadway pits, and then I started working full-time professionally in the theater world. Not long after that, I have 3 seconds left. That my favorite color is red. That's it.
Hey, that's the best way to end it.
That was great.
You want to go?
Yes, as long as you're not worried about Scout eating everything. Yes, okay, ready, set.
All right, ready, go.
Okay, so my name is Zach. I am the product of an Asian immigrant and my father, who is a Jewish white boy from Indiana. I grew up in California in the Bay Area, the best NorCal. And I was a terrible theater kid. I really didn't become a theater kid until like high school. I was a swimmer and I was a nerd. I loved studying science. And so when I was just starting to go to school, it became very clear to me that I could only have a couple options that were like interdisciplinary studies. So I chose Northwestern, where I met Adam, and I studied both theater, musical theater, and also biology. I was a pre-med, actually a pre-veterinary medicine, pointing to the dog that we have. Finished all those degrees, all those things at the school, decided afterwards that I was gonna go to New York City and try it out. Came here, have been very fortunate to do some really cool shows in the city, such as Wicked and Sweeney Todd, and the current one that I'm in, Evan Hansen, where I originated out of town in Toronto, and then I came here. And I have a really great dog,
5
and
seconds.
I live in a great place, and I'm
3,
taking it day by day.
2,
I
1.
think that was good.
That was good.
Okay, I have to start by saying, Zach, that you and Emily seem like you're the exact same person. She didn't become a theater kid till high school. She's a nerd also. She loves science.
Yes.
Rock on.
You guys are like the same person.
We should talk about where are you going to school? Wait, is it too early? What year are you?
I'm a junior, so I don't know yet. I
so
want
much
to be in New York or DC, hopefully, but we'll see where I end up. I don't know.
Very cool.
Love it.
Northwestern, I love Northwestern, but it's cold. So
It's slightly cold there.
It is very cold.
Sometimes. Yes.
Very cold. Very cold. California boy saying that is very cold.
So I'm curious, Adam, as to how you sort of found theater as, like a classical like upbringing, how that came into your life.
Yeah, classical people are really weird about musical theater and have a lot of sort of preconceived notions about its value in the sort of hierarchy of different art forms. And I always found that so offensive and silly. Like when I was growing up playing piano, all my piano teachers would like find out that I was like actually acting as a child performer at a bunch of community theater productions. And my teachers were always like, why are you wasting your time doing that? Like, what is that? You need to be like practicing 8 hours a day instead. And so I just kind of started telling them less that I was doing that. I didn't tell my piano teacher all the theater stuff I was doing. And then I wouldn't tell my theater directors all the classical music stuff I was doing. And then I just thought, why not keep up this charade for the first like 25 years of my life? And just kept at that when I was in college. So my piano teacher, I think to this day, has no idea that I was like music directing shows in the theater department. But yeah, I think for me, I just have always really connected with the community in theater. I think like the kind of people that are drawn to theater, I've always found them to be more the people that I get along with, the people that I want to work with. They really light me up even more than my classical colleagues do. So that's kind of the reason why I spend more of my time hanging out in that world right now.
That's awesome.
So cool. And Zach also has you came into theater in high school. How did you go from swimming to theater? I'm curious as to how that came about.
Yes. Well, my parents, I'm an only child, and my parents from a very young age always kind of showed me the arts. Like there was a thing called Best of Broadway that came to town, as all the touring shows that came to San Francisco, and we saw all those starting at like age 5. And the rumor is that when I first saw my first show at Fiddler on the Roof, I was 5 years old at the Curran Theater, or maybe the Orpheum. I can't remember which one it was. But I loved it so much that I like was screaming for an encore at the end. So I've always had that love for watching theater and like watching the art and being an observer of art. But I just didn't even think it was a possibility of doing it until really late high school, when I had a great high school acting teacher who kind of said, let's see, do it. It's fun. My friends happen to be doing it. So I was like, I'm going to join in too. Why not? I feel like that's how a lot of theater kids get started, is that their friends do it. So then they do it. And kind of one thing led to another, and opportunities came my way. And I just learned that nothing can really serve that or fill that kind of serve that same kind of feeling that you get when you're in the limelight and you're singing a song or saying words in front of a group of strangers or loved ones. My senior year, pretty much everyone on this earth knows this story, but they were doing Les Mis at my high school, obviously. And I obviously played the role of Jean Valjean. And it's cliche, but it was really one of those experiences that kind of turned the whole thing upside down for me. And it was really late in the game in terms of applying to colleges then. So
the shortest Jean Valjean there's ever been.
But it really was. I was like, whoa, what is that feeling? Never had before. It's amazing. And yeah, so I guess it was a mixture of me kind of knowing that theater existed as in one way as an observer, and then really not feeling that bug of being a performer until later on. And when it caught me, it was like, so there really was no turning back at that point. But I'm still a nerd at heart. I still love, I still love science, and I still love, studying. I loved being a student in high school and in college. I just loved it.
In quarantine, he's become the Duolingo king. I think he was ranked #1 in the world.
No, that's not how it works. I used to be able to speak Mandarin pretty fluently when I was growing up, and then it went away because that's what happened when you get old. And I decided to pick it back up and finish the course, and it was a really fulfilling thing that I did during quarantine, and I'm kind of figuring out how I can continue that. But not first in the world, you dodo.
Hey, something to add to the resume. So
yeah, exactly.
Special skills, right?
Truly.
Also, sorry, I had to run away for a second. For anyone watching the video version, Scout was eating her bed, so we had to just move her to her other bed where she'll take a nap.
More than one bed. She's really living the high life over there.
She's spoiled.
She's a princess,
yeah.
But she's my dog, so of course she's a princess. What can I say?
Oh my God, that's amazing. So now you're both mentioning kind of coming into theater through high school, and so you both ended up at Northwestern, and you meet each other in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that unfold? Where did you guys meet?
The story. Oh gosh. We didn't really cross paths until junior year. I think we were kind of aware of who each other was because we were both in the.
He was obsessed with me, is what he was saying.
Oh my God. So I came back from studying abroad, and happened upon an a cappella show for a group that Zach was in called the Northwestern Undertones. A cappella is like huge at Northwestern, like unhealthily so. Like imagine like Greek life, fraternities, sororities, times 10, but with theater nerds. Like that is a cappella at Northwestern. And I went to an Undertones show, thought that the tenor soloist was talented and maybe decently good looking as well. And we met that night, and Zach pretended to be on he was on vocal rest actually after that for an audition. So he was like, oh, I can't talk to you, but let me like text you. So he like gave me his number, and we were like literally sitting across from each other, texting back and forth at an Undertones party. The rest is history.
That is the story. But I will say that actually one of my first memories of Adam, and I've told you this before, but I think it was sophomore year. When was Shrek? It was sophomore year, right?
Junior year.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So we started dating officially in like spring of junior, but the winter musical, there's something called the Dolphin Show at Northwestern, which is a huge tradition that's been going on for 85, 90 years.
Yeah.
And
so
it's
an entirely student produced and directed musical.
Very cool. They got cool stuff there. Emily, pushing for you. But so Adam was the music director of Shrek, but he was abroad in Copenhagen, and I was auditioning for a part in that.
Oh, that's right.
And I remember it was actually very similar to where we are currently at now, where it's like because of where he was zooming in. It wasn't Zoom though, it was Skype, or was it Face? What was it?
I think it was Skype. I Skyped into the
because
Shrek
Zoom
audition.
because Zoom really wasn't really a thing. I mean, at least for the mainstream in 2008, 7, 15,
That's
14,
right.
whatever.
I saw your callback for Donkey.
And I remember
Shrek.
being a donkey in Shrek and like singing a crazy song, like jumping around the room and just seeing like a little blurry person on a screen and being like, this is very weird. But of course, it was just a precursor to what would then be all of 2019 and 2020. But that was one of my first memories of him. But that Fateful Acapella show really kind of was where we sealed the deal. And then from there, we really were fortunate to play some shows together actually at Northwestern. Like he was on the keys or conducting, and I was acting in them. And one of my favorite moments of being in New York, speaking of like our relationship, not just like the two of us, but also just us being in New York here, was that we got to actually do Sweeney Todd off-Broadway downtown together. I had been in the show for almost 6 months and they were looking for a sub. And I had nothing to do with it because Adam is the most talented human in the world. But I remember the current music director there was like, hey, so I'm thinking of asking Adam to be a sub. How would you feel about that? And I couldn't hide. I was like, that'd be fine. That's cool. Like everything's cool. That's great. And we got to do the show 2 times, 3 times.
No, more than that.
Really? I can't remember so long ago. But we got to do the show a lot together. And I just remember being that show. I'm sure you guys were like in utero when that show happened, but it was a very cool experience. And it was like tiny cast, tiny orchestra. All of us were in this tiny pie shop that now would not meet any COVID restrictions. And it was so magical being able to like experience that with Adam all those nights, literally being like inches away from him for most of the show, like singing not while I'm around, being a foot away from my partner was just magical. So that was a lot of talking.
That's amazing. We're not even here to like respond. We just love hearing all of these stories.
So was Sweeney, was that your first show together in the city or?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, I was still in school. Yeah, I was finishing my master's. So I really came to New York first and foremost to do the classical thing and focus on grad school. And Zach kind of came independently to really pursue the theater thing. And then it was just a really weird colliding of worlds when the folks at Sweeney called and were like, hey, we need a conductor sub. And your partner happens to be in the show. Is that cool? And it's like, oh yeah, I can make that work.
Beyond cool.
Yeah. It was that was a very cool experience. It also makes it so that our dream, at least my dream, is to like do as many shows as I can with Adam. You know, whether it's touring or here in New York, it's always kind of, I mean, not something that I really say out loud publicly, but I guess I just did. But that's always something that I hope that we get to do more of because it always really warms my soul.
That's amazing.
I hope that too now. I'm rooting for you.
I guarantee that when that happens, Emily and I will be in the first row on the first night screaming our heads off.
Can't wait.
100% accurate. I can't deny it. So when did you guys kind of know that you wanted to go into the arts professionally? Like, was that something that happened for you in college, or was that epiphany like you came into high school, you knew this is what I'm going to do?
You can take that one first if you want. I feel like you're less conventional on that score.
In terms of when I decided to go become professional?
Yeah.
So I did like some community theater at the end of high school, like very, very community theater in California. And then when I went to college, my really first professional show was at a theater called the Marriott Theater, Lincolnshire in Chicago. They do great productions out there. And it's actually how I got my card. So really my first big like theatrical break, which actually, funny enough, bringing back the story, was the reason why I was on vocal rest when I met Adam, because I had the final callback for Godspell at the Marriott. And I got my card through that, and it was a very, very great, very cool experience. So that kind of was the first time that I feel like I even started to think about saying I'm an actor. Like, this is what I want to do. I feel like
after you were already getting the paycheck for being an actor.
But so something that you'll find, and it probably has something to do with my lack of confidence that I, had, and, we all continue to work on. But it took me a long time to really say, like, I am an actor. This is what I do. Even though I had 2 years into Wicked, I was still having a hard time saying that when someone said, what do you do? Because there's just something that's around there, a little stigma around saying I'm an artist, that someone might, pass judgment on you immediately. And so I remember that, but I remember, I'm going on a huge tangent here. I remember being in Godspell was really the first experience that I had where I was like, oh, maybe I could actually do this. Like maybe I could actually say that this is what I do. I love doing this. I can get paid to do this and get health benefits. How crazy is this? So that would be the first for me.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know. I feel like we all have, to some extent, the imposter syndrome. Like I feel like we all experience that at some point in our lives where we're in a situation that seems just way above our pay grade, and we're like, how did I end up here? I'm not actually good enough to be here. And I feel like my life has been one continuous stream of those events where I just keep showing up places where people ask me to be, and I feel like I'm totally unqualified to be there, and yet somehow I'm like there working. And so I think in terms of working professionally in the arts, for me, it's always something that I've been really passionate about. But in terms of it becoming my career and my job, I feel like those opportunities have just kind of dropped in, and then all of a sudden I'm there and I'm like, okay, like, wow, this is actually possible. I guess it's kind of similar to you. I didn't realize until I was actually like making a living doing this that you can make a living doing this.
Yes, because you hear so much more of it won't happen, you're going to get, and it is true that you'll get 9 million no's for one yes.
Yeah.
It should be said that both Adam and I have had a bajillion botched auditions or places that said no to us, or shows that we would kill to be in that said no, and it's not all just,
That's so true.
Colored glass, rose-colored glass is not all that. But it does take a bit of time to kind of acknowledge that and to say, this is what I want to do and what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So you guys are both kind of speaking to this, the hardship and the kind of lack of confidence. How do you cope with that in your daily life of making sure that you don't kind of get swallowed by that lack of confidence and come very confidently?
Yeah, I'll let you know if we figure out a good way to deal with it.
Great answer.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I feel like I think a lot about actually you should probably tell this story about the Martha Graham quote from Peter Scolari.
Yeah, so when I was at Wicked, I was having I had that imposter syndrome because I was fresh out of school. I couldn't believe it when I got that call. I asked my agent, I was like, are you sure they have the right Zachary Noah Piser? Because there has to be another one out there. I cannot believe this is true. I had auditioned for the tour. And I got a call that was like, so you're going to play Bach on Broadway. And I was just like, I had no idea. I couldn't understand. So the entirety that I was there. And I remember Peter Scolari, who is, I don't know if you guys would be familiar with his work, but he is a very highly esteemed stage actor, film actor, TV actor. He's done pretty much everything under the sun. And he had this quote that he had hung up that I'm going to screw up in terms of who it came from.
So it's from Martha Graham to Agnes DeMille.
Yes.
Who's like
two choreographers.
Yeah.
And it essentially in it was saying, I think Agnes DeMille was reacting to a bad review that she got, and she was so disheartened. And Martha Graham, in a conversation, Martha Graham sent her a letter and a correspondence of some manner that essentially talked about this idea of a blessed unrest. That's what it was called. We all, as artists, live in this kind of limbo land of blessed unrest, where you're never really fully satisfied, but that's okay. That's part of what it means to be an artist. And the other big thing is that it's not your job to assign quality and value to your work. Let other people do that. So as in, I can't say, oh, I can't do this. That's not fair. That feeling, that anxiety is part of the blessed unrest that you have to live with and figure out how to tolerate in order to continue to be that. But yeah, I think that kind of sums it up for me. Whenever
so I guess the short answer is the only way to embrace the lack of or the only way to deal with the lack of confidence is just like embrace it and accept that that voice is always going to be there,
of course,
and enjoy the fact that it might actually bring some benefits to your performance, and it's going to be there whether you want it to be or not.
But it's always it's you continue to think and learn, and both of us can have a lot longer to go on that journey, and I think forever will.
And I think that's such a relevant thing to talk about, because on social media, you'll only ever see the things that people, when they get accepted, no one's gonna like post on Instagram, oh, guess what? I didn't get into this Broadway show.
Yeah.
So I think talking about it makes people feel like they're not so alone. Like, oh my God, why didn't I get into this show? Like, why am I terrible? So it's definitely
Absolutely.
The thing that I'll tell you that I'm really thrilled about, I mean, social media, we can talk about that forever too, gives me a lot of anxiety as well, especially as it pertains to theater and our industry. But the thing that I will say that I'm so impressed by and love about your generation, because we're different generations, you Gen Zers, is that you are willing to share that anxiety and you're willing to share those bad moments way more willingly than our generation ever was. And that's so refreshing. I mean, Adam and I have been saying what you said, Jesse, about you should be able to call and talk to your closest acquaintances, just peers about like, yeah, I had a terrible audition and it didn't go well and I'm learning from it. And just hearing that is something that will give you comfort and give the other person that you're telling that comfort too, to say, oh, everyone is in it together. Nobody has ever batted 100. You know, no one's ever gotten every single audition. And if they have, God bless the unicorn that they are. But 90 million, 99.999% people are not that way.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of Emily and myself. We've definitely had many of those moments where not even just in theater, just in life.
Yeah.
So normalize talking about it. Like, it really just makes people feel less alone. And like, I'm speaking on behalf of Emily myself, and I know that she would agree with this, right?
Yeah. Very safe to say that. I mean, it's very easy. Like you guys are saying, it's so easy to kind of fall into the trap of, well, my life should look just like this one. And that's just not the reality of you don't see everything. And
totally.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. So switching gears a little bit, can you tell us what about the musicals you've gotten to work on most excites you?
Ooh, gosh. I think for me, so I didn't mention this in my 60-second story. I realized I didn't even say like what shows I've done. Whoops. So the two big ones that I've spent kind of the most time doing were, I was on the national tour of Miss Saigon for a long time, and then came back to New York to do the Broadway revival of Company. And I think in both of those cases, it's so cliche for the music person to say like, oh, the score, but honestly, like the score, like it's, I think in both cases for very, very different reasons, it's just a lot of really good, like both of those shows are so meaty musically. And the cool thing with Saigon is that it was a big challenge, actually. Like the Key One book on that show is really wearing a lot of different hats. You have to kind of be Jerry Lee Lewis and do a whole rock and roll stint, but then you also have to do really big symphonic sort of classical playing. So it really kind of kept my brain engaged the whole time, kind of switching gears into different styles. And with Company, I mean, it's Sondheim. Like there's just, you can play it a million times and every night find something different, or find that you were playing a wrong note that you has been in there for weeks and you had no idea. It's just like Sondheim to me is infinitely complex, and spending time with it, the score and getting to know it that way is always, I love nerding out about that. So I think for the shows that I've worked on, I've just been really lucky that like musically between that and like getting to play Sweeney Todd, like I've gotten some really awesome music to sink my fingers into, which is super lucky.
Yeah, that sounds great. Everything you said, that sounds great. The question was, what's my favorite thing that I've done, or like was that it?
What about the musicals you've gotten to work on most excites you? Whether it's like the show itself or something.
Got it. Let's see here. I would say that Wicked, just the newness of it was the most exciting thing to me. The fact that I could call that work, the fact that I had work, all those things, all the above. And also Wicked was like, you know, I was also one of those Wicked kids who loved Wicked and continues to love Wicked. And would go back and see Wicked multiple times. I feel like that's one of the only shows that you would ever do. And then I would be happy to go back and watch it, not even be in it, just to watch it, because it's so great. For Sweeney Todd, I think that kind of what Adam said, I mean, for me, that was really the first time that New York ever trusted me to sing a solo, to kind of like be Bach is a great character, but actually like have some emotional depth and all these kinds of things. So that felt like a whole new frontier for me as well. And the music, I mean, Sondheim is Bay is God. He really kind of
Sondheim is Bay.
He truly.
That is I'm quoting you on that until the
I was
end.
just gonna say Emily's definitely gonna quote you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is singing Not While I'm Around every night, sometimes twice a day, was the most incredible gift to me. I couldn't believe that I was able to do that. And it was really one of those productions that I think I'll never be able to forget because it was just so cool. And I couldn't believe I was there because I didn't feel cool enough. And then for, I guess, purely New York shows like Dear Evan Hansen, I mean, I think that the greatest gift of that was, I mean, again, kind of moving along this like new frontier of kind of like leading a show. I never thought that someone who looked like me, was my height, was my ethnicity, blah, 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 would be able to lead a show. And I'm doing it in a show that I remember when I saw Ben do the show like in 2016 or something. And I remember going there and I remember calling Adam afterwards. You were either on tour, you were not here or you were at school, whatever it was. And I remember, I went backstage because I knew Ben and I was just like totally in awe. I was just like, I remember thinking like, man, I wish I could do that. Not even like, I'm going to do it, but it was just like, wow, what he did was so spectacular and so individual to him and specific. And the story was so heartbreaking and the character was so complex. And I just remember actually being sad. I remember being like, I wonder if I'm ever going to get a chance. And I don't know if I can do that. And then sure enough, I'm doing it here in New York, playing the role. And it really kind of blows my mind that I get to do that. I think it's a great lesson for everyone, kind of with this blessed unrest, that don't let yourself be the person to tell you that you can't do something. Instead of me saying like, oh, I can't do that. Put in the work, go for your dreams, and let someone else ultimately say, you know what, not at this time, but maybe another time. Because if I had let that dream go, I definitely, and I had just succumbed and said, I can't do that, I definitely would not be here. I mean, of course, now we're in a pandemic, but before the pandemic, I would not have been at the Music Box. And yeah, I mean, there's so many other things, but I feel like that's just kind of popping out of my head, the things that are most special.
Entirely quotable, the whole thing, let's be real.
Yeah.
I think that it's incredible. And you originated the role in the Toronto cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
So doing the Toronto production versus Broadway, there were just the most different experiences, because Toronto was essentially like doing what Adam did with Saigon. It was like a brand new company. So we rehearsed here in New York. We were there from day one together. Like we learned the music, we learned everything as a company. And it really was like a family. I was the only American in the Toronto company in the beginning. And then actually one other American came up to the Toronto company as well later on in the run. And they were also sweet. And I loved my time in Toronto. Like I miss it so much. It was so terrific. Adam got to come hang out a couple times and visit, and it's beautiful up there. But it was actually really the first experience I had ever had of creating a new cast, like an original cast. Because both with Wicked and Sweeney I had replaced. And so when I came and did it in New York, it was so different, equally fulfilling, equally valuable, but just different because, Broadway, there were some cast members that had been in the show for 4 years. There were some people that had been in it for a year. There were some people who had been 6 months. And I came in with Jessica Phillips, who plays Heidi. And so we came in together. But before I rehearsed...
how much rehearsal time did you get
for
that?
So before... The first time that I ever really cried and like hugged Jessica Phillips was my first show on Broadway. Like my first matinee that I did was the first time I ever did in So Big, So Small, really that embrace. I was like, oh, this is how it feels to hug you. And that's not what the experience was in Toronto. Toronto, we rehearsed that scene ad nauseum, over and over again. So it just was different, but I loved my time in Toronto, and I'm still really close with a lot of the people on that company. Because it was a really good group of people, and what they say about Canadians, about them being just like nicer and just good humans, is 100% true.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. Canadians are nicer.
They are truly.
Sondheim is Bay. Canada is Bay. That's what we're taking away from this.
Honestly, I feel like those are key takeaways. Sondheim is Bay, and I've never been to Canada, but it just seems like
Oh, it's the best. Canada is a beautiful, beautiful place.
They're so sweet, and they say sorry like sorry. And they say, what else do they say? What are the words?
Yeah, Zach is known for his dialects.
Terrible.
Really.
Terrible. Sorry. But it was so cute. They would say sorry and the Connor project. It's just different words.
Aw.
Anyway.
So, Adam, I have a question for you, talking more about Sondheim.
Mm.
So, conducting a show is arguably one of the most massive parts of the production. How do you get into the right headspace to conduct? And what about conducting Sondheim specifically is the most exciting or the most challenging?
Ooh, I'm so flattered that you think that conducting is a big thing.
It is. You were the captain of the ship.
Yeah. No, it's I spend most of the time trying to like tell myself that I'm very small when I'm on the podium, like not trying to tell myself that like the whole thing is gonna break if you screw this up. But yeah, I think the most challenging thing, just conducting in general, for theater, is the number of moving parts, right? If you're conducting a symphony orchestra, all you have, granted there are like 90 people in front of you, but they're all focused on doing the same thing. They're all looking to you to create one unified performance of your Mahler symphony or whatever you're doing. But when you're in the theater, you are one cog in a very, very, very large machine. So there are a lot of different interests at stake, as in like the singers are going to want to get through it in a certain way. They're trying to like act and also perform things that are really difficult vocally. If there's choreography, how fast can we go that people can actually dance this successfully and not be at a safety risk? And then in like a bigger show like Saigon, it was things like, you know, there is a literal helicopter landing on the stage. If I don't time this out musically correctly, then the whole thing is going to get screwed up and the helicopter's not going to come in and it's going to be my fault. Like things that actually can happen.
Stressful.
Just slightly stressful. Yeah. Also, all you have to do to conduct is learn how to land a helicopter and you're good to go.
There you go.
No, but so I think that's kind of the global being a theater conductor, just managing everyone else's needs and trying to funnel it through one compelling interpretation of the show is kind of the big challenge. For Sondheim in particular, I think it's that the music is super complex, right? There's a lot of harmonic density and often a lot of rhythmic, really kind of gnarly stuff happening in the orchestra. But he really writes for actors more than he writes for singers. And a lot of times with Sondheim, really he favors hearing the lyric or getting the comedy or the drama of the scene much more than having somebody that's just going to have this gorgeous golden tone and just sing all over the place. So I think making sure that you leave room for Patti LuPone to land her jokes, or making sure that you leave room for Katrina Lenk to really have an emotional moment in being alive, really making sure that you're locked into the motivations as an actor behind them, I think is so crucial in Sondheim. And a lot of people forget that because they're so taken aback by how musically rich it is that they assume that, okay, it's just all about the music. But I think as a conductor, that's really the biggest thing, is figuring out how to support your cast so that they can really act their way through the show in a way that feels good for them.
Yeah.
Well said. That's great.
Thanks.
So then kind of circling back to you guys working on Sweeney, I guess for you, Zach, as an actor in a Sondheim show, did you feel that sort of support from the score acting wise, and how did that translate into your performance?
Well, so the greatest thing, I mentioned this earlier, but Sweeney Todd, that production, why it was so special is, I mean, any production of Sweeney is special, but the reason why that was special is because usually the cast is 40 people. There's usually a principal cast of like 10 or 12 and an ensemble of 30 plus.
And an orchestra of 25, yeah.
And instead it was a cast of 7. Is that right? 6?
I think 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think
yeah,
it was
7 and an orchestra of 3.
7 and an orchestra of 3.
Teeny Sweeney is what they call it.
Teeny Sweeney is what they called us. And I think that allowed that production to be whatever the heck it wanted to be in such a beautiful way. There was no restrictions. There was no preconceived notions of what it should be, because when you came in, I remember I saw the show before I even knew I had an audition for it. I went and saw the show, like with Chelsea and with you, just you. And I remember just walking in and thinking, there's 3 people, there's the 3-person orchestra, like how this is like the most lush Sondheim score. Like, how is this going to work? And just being blown away at the novelty of the orchestrations and the sound that they were able to produce. And I feel like then being in it, the beauty of acting in a show that has not only a small orchestra, but an orchestra that's literally on stage with you, is that I could hear and feel whoever was playing and conducting, I could feel them breathing. And that never happens in a Broadway show, right? You're usually separated by, a stage and then a lip and then a pit. And I could literally, if it was Adam, I could hear him breathing. So when I breathe, he breathed to start the next phrase of a novel I'm around or whatever it was. And a lot of that show, I mean, it's so difficult. All the like little epilogues and prologues and all the little Sweeney Todds that you sing. It was so, sometimes a cue was literally Adam is going to lift his left eyebrow, whoever is playing, Adam is going to raise his left hand. And that is when we start singing. And so just the intimacy of that show made it so special. It really was unlike anything that
really,
I've ever
really
done.
collaborative. I
Collaborative,
think the collaboration is way more tangible in that.
And it
setting.
had to be, right? Because if one person didn't show up to work and was just going off on their own, everyone was sitting, the audience was sitting inches away. So everyone would feel that and hear that, and it would have been a train wreck. So it really required everyone to kind of come together, listen to each other, and breathe together in a way that I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, and I think as Broadway as a whole, people tend to think that the actors make or break it. And yes, obviously the actors are such a big part, but the show would not happen if it wasn't for everyone in the pit, everyone backstage, everyone doing the lights. Like, there's so many pieces that have to go together to make it work.
Absolutely. It is a collaboration on all fronts. I mean, there's a reason why I think, I can't remember the number, but it's something like hundreds of different unions are represented within each theater. Most people think they're like, oh, in the theater, they're the actors, and then they're the actors. And instead it's like, no, there's actually the stagehands, there's the light crew, there's the sound crew, there's the ushers, there's the, all these
front
different
of house staff, the wardrobe, it's a whole village that
costume,
that comes
stage
together.
managers, production stage managers. It's a whole machine really that goes into one single production.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of what makes this pandemic so hard too, is, everybody is all part of it. So I guess shifting gears over to pandemic times a little bit, but always a great time in the era of COVID. But what has kept you guys kind of inspired in COVID times, and what's kind of kept you creative?
Y'all, it's been literally people like you two. Honestly, like the biggest thing that change that we've made in shifting to the pandemic has been that we spend a lot more time now teaching and coaching, and working with folks that are in high school and middle school. And it's been really, really inspiring to see how innovative and creative and unflappable the younger generation is in spite of all this. I mean, it's been so fulfilling to really see, and especially the people that we've worked with long term, like Jessie. You've been like doing coachings with me since early in the summer, right?
I was just gonna say, I've worked with both of them, and I highly recommend. So if you are listening, 10 out of 10 recommend working with Zach and Adam. I have a voice lesson with Adam on Thursday, so I recommend.
A queen.
Thank you. Thank you for the plug. But no, honestly, it's been really, really awesome to see the growth in other people as performers right now. When, right now for us, that's not really something that we can do ourselves. So to see it in another generation is like super inspiring, and honestly one of the biggest things that certainly keeps me going. And I think I would say that Zach would say the same.
I would agree. I mean, it's almost like when I see these kids either in a group class for a teacher or in private coachings make these great strides over a Zoom screen at that age, it's almost like it's a really good punch to the gut for me, being like, if these literal children compared to us are able to pick themselves up and make something and put something out into the world and like not be scared and just go for it, it really kind of is a ding moment every time for me, in a good way, like a ding, that it's like, okay, then you should absolutely be able to do that as well. I think, truth be told, how do we get inspired? It's really tough. like there have been plenty of times in this pandemic where I have said, I don't want to. I don't want to create. I don't want to sing. I don't want anything because it just makes me sad. You know, I miss what it was. I miss the life that being a performer. I miss the collaboration. I miss interacting with humans on a stage. But then there are other things in life, other creative outlets that have really lifted me up. You know, Adam, my dog, my apartment, my family. You know, like picking up skills that I didn't mean to, you know, upping our cooking game, like relearning Mandarin. It's these things that kind of feed my creative soul in ways that I hadn't envisioned them doing. But we all kind of had to make, you know, the big word pivot. But it's more like, where can those energies go? How can I utilize them? What can I do to still feel like I'm being productive, but without feeling like I have to say, be productive, do something today? Because that for me never works. If I tell myself today, you're going to learn a new song, that day I'm sitting on the couch and eating popcorn and watching TV because it's sometimes too hard to do that in these times.
Absolutely. 100%.
I feel that.
That got sad, but it's true.
It's
No,
true.
but-
No, but I think a
yeah.
silver lining that you're pointing out is like so often artists are kind of trained to devote your whole life to whatever your craft is. Like you eat, sleep, breathe theater or music or whatever it is you do. And I think in this time, a lot of us that can't do that, we've learned that, oh, like there are other parts to being a human. Like there are other enriching things in my life that I can work on and cultivate and try to get better at. And I think it's been a big silver lining from this time, figuring out what those things are and enjoying getting to work on them.
Yeah. And also, yeah, exactly. Taking advantage of that time. A big part of that is that figuring out those things that you would not normally be able to do, but to utilize this time. And again, that doesn't mean like do something productive. It could be like, I don't know, meeting someone that's in your building that you never got to meet before, of course, masked and socially distanced, but like because your hours are opposite. All of a sudden, I can't tell you the amount of neighbors that we know and like now are friendly with and it feels like we're part of a community. Instead of before, it almost felt like we were just, I mean, Adam, right before the shutdown happened, was in previews. And was in previews. So essentially, you guys know what that means. But for those who don't know what that means, it means he was up at 10 a.m. going to the theater to be in rehearsal to change anything from the previous night's show that didn't go well or rehearse it. Then he had a quick lunch break and then was going into a show. So I saw Adam when I picked him up in my car coming home from Evan Hansen, and that is pretty much it. So the fact that we've had time together and all these other things has also been a silver lining.
Oh, definitely. And that definitely hits home for me because before the pandemic, theater was like my only thing that I liked in life. And I mean, there's so much that we've missed, obviously, but another silver lining for me is that I found my love for American Sign Language. And there's zero chance I would have found it if it wasn't for this pandemic.
It's true.
So
That's exactly the kind of thing I mean. That's awesome.
And it's about holding, I mean, many times a day, Adam and I will, if we're feeling down on a down day, we'll just say to each other, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for in this moment? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, not what's going to happen in a month. What are you grateful for today? And if that is the delicious breakfast sandwich that you just made and ate, or if it's that our dog just had
make very good breakfast sandwiches, I will say.
Or if it's that our puppy, you know, after having tummy troubles, have a solid poop, like, you know, it's about celebrating those things and being grateful for those things. It's not all about kind of what I can or cannot do within or outside the theater.
absolutely.
Yeah. Living in the present. I think that's something that we all kind of had to shift to. I know I tend to not do, and something that we all had to learn.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
So do you guys have like a particular?
Slowing down. Sorry,
Yes.
just
Yeah.
Slowing down.
Oh,
for
slowing
sure.
down.
Yeah,
So hard.
we're
So hard
all
to do.
I have a feeling all four of us in this conversation are not great at that.
No.
No.
Can
Terrible.
confirm.
Terrible.
What's breathing? I wouldn't know.
Haven't exhaled since 1998.
So do you guys have a sort of like a standout virtual or kind of COVID theater or COVID even just quarantine like with each other moment that really kind of stands out to you guys, or particular memories that stick out?
I think getting to perform in Buffalo was pretty fun.
That was absolutely one of those.
Yeah, that was we in November. Yeah, what is time? Yeah, November. A friend of ours, Drew Fornarola, who's from Buffalo, New York, he created a theater up there, doing really awesome programming during normal times, and during pandemic times, he wanted to start this sort of virtual streaming cabaret from a really awesome cabaret space in Buffalo. So he invited the two of us to come do a set there. And it was absolutely bizarre, like,
and terrifying,
getting on a plane to like pack up and go perform, which is something that we hadn't done in so long. And it was totally weird performing for an empty room, a full cabaret set, but it was a lot of fun to just kind of force yourself to exercise that muscle of like, this is not pre-recorded. This is not like
it is live,
like what
but no one's here.
Yeah, like whatever I do right now is what someone hopefully somewhere is listening to. And it was a lot of fun to get to do a full set together that way.
Yeah, there were moments in that where the light went off in my head and my heart got warmed by just that feeling of performing. You know, it took a little bit of time to figure out like, oh
yeah, there were also several moments of like, what is a piano? How do I play it?
I was like, where do I look? It was like I was essentially going through all the things that we teach our kids when we're coaching, of being like, Zach, what is the moment before? Where are you looking? How are you changing your perspective? Like all these things I had to ask myself to kind of recenter every single moment. And I was nervous. Like I was like, but it was good. It was good to remember that feeling. Even however uncomfortable it was, I mean,
the blessed unrest, right?
Absolutely. It was so wonderful. Other highlights of the pandemic include spending Christmas. I'm Jewish, but spending my first Christmas, really, I guess second Christmas, in Adam's upstate home with his family in Syracuse.
That was clear, my parents' house, not my not my country house that I've bought with all of my Broadway money.
Yes,
that'd be nice.
No, that was really lovely because it was a time that, I mean, my family lives on the West Coast, and so I've really only been able to see them once in the last like a year and a half, and so spending time with family, I really realized how much I've taken that for granted, and just being around family, whether or not it's your blood or your chosen family, can be so healing. You know, after a while you're kind of like, okay, should we go home? But it really is so fulfilling and feeds your soul in a different way. And then I think the other big highlight for me is probably Scout, the puppy that we got, because I mean, every morning I wake up and I open up her crate and she's happy to see me and I cry, pretty much. Like it's usually how the morning goes, because it sounds so dramatic. I don't actually cry, but it's like, you know, opening a door and coming home and having an animal love you and show you that much, you know, I don't know. It's just, there's something about that right now where you can't feel that embrace of another human besides when you live with. There's something that's so cathartic about that for me. And I've also always wanted a puppy, a dog. And so it really is one of those things that has been invaluable to me and my mental health and well-being during this quarantine.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That's so cool. I love it. So I guess my final question for you guys, if you could go back and look at, you know, past Adam and past Zach, you know, like freshman year of college, senior year of high school, and tell your past self something, what would you tell them?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Ooh, that's a really good one though. Okay, I think unless you have
stop wearing khakis.
Oh my god.
No.
Yeah, ditch the cargo shorts. No, I think for me it all comes down to risk taking. I think I would tell myself to be riskier earlier. And I think we all I don't know, for all the perfectionists in the house, of which I am like, yeah, a card carrying member, I feel like I just really have this tendency to not want to show things that I'm working on if they're unfinished, or to really wait until something is perfect before I present it. And I think in college, that's kind of a lot of what I did. I was like, I'm going to really aim for the things that I am good at and make sure that I do them really well. And the stuff that I'm not great at, I'm going to kind of shy away from, or I'm going to wait until it gets good enough that I can share it with people. And whether that means like composing or just venturing into different styles of music or any of that stuff, I would just tell myself, like, take more risks sooner. Like you have so little to lose at that point in your life. Like in college, it's such a safe space. Whereas, you know, it's not like getting thrown to the wolves in New York if you try to venture into somewhere new creatively. So I would say, yeah, take more risks.
That's great. I think I would say a lot of things. I would say take piano lessons and why aren't you in a dance class? Those would be like the first two things if I could like transport back to that. But I don't know. I think that it would be like a mixture of things of be nicer to yourself, be kinder to yourself. Also, like, chill out. It doesn't matter that much. It really doesn't matter. Like, stop. It doesn't matter. Like, anything that you're worried about freshman year, Zach, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to matter, and it doesn't matter. For better, for worse. And I think the biggest thing for me that I always try to impress upon anybody that I meet who wants to do this is this idea that we've kind of talked about not being the person to tell yourself that you can't do something. I feel like, and this will happen to everyone in high school or college, of feeling like pigeonholed or feeling like being told, whether it's by your peers or your faculty or your teachers or your parents, whatever it is, that you can or cannot do something, or this is what you should do. And it's kind of along with the risks. I would just say, try. If someone says you shouldn't do something, do it. If someone says you can't do something, try it. You know, because you can literally only gain from that. If you fall on your face, you tried. You can say that you tried. Because I feel like for me in college, especially, it was a lot of kind of being told what I was and kind of going with that instead of going against that, and feeling like I could have that autonomy to do it. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are both good answers. Emily, we're gonna have to come back in like 10 years and see what we would say to our junior year of high school selves.
Seriously,
you will.
We'll revisit. We'll all get together in 2031.
And I'd be curious to see what we would say to our pandemic selves.
Yeah. We'll all revisit.
Like, stop baking so much bread, or put down the cookbook, or I don't know, something like that.
Stop eating.
Say stop watching Friends.
Yes, that's real.
Yes.
Well, on that awesome note, I think that we are about ready to close out. So if our listeners want to find you guys and connect with you guys, where can they find you? Where can they plug yourselves as you will?
Yeah. Oh gosh. On the Insta, I guess. Zach's much better at using social media than I am.
Really not.
We're both grandpas. We're pretty bad at it, but Zach's better than I am. But yeah, you can drop your handle if you want.
Drop your handle, babe.
I don't even know. Wait, I'm checking my Instagram handle right now.
Oh boy.
It's
We're giving you your time. Take your time. Slow down.
It's Adam_Rothenberg.
A brilliant handle. Brilliant.
Thank you.
They know exactly what to find.
Really
and similarly, I'm at Zach_Piser. That's my name.
And we will be tagging them both on Instagram.
Yay.
So definitely follow them.
Thank you for helping out the grandpas that don't know how to actually plug themselves. Much appreciated.
Thank you for creating this. You know, this is even just to revisit some of these memories. God, I sound so old. I sound like my grandma. Even just to revisit some of these memories I feel like during the pandemic, especially as a theater artist and in this industry, it's easy to just say, let's not talk about it because it's too painful. But sometimes talking about those things is actually healing in a way. Sounds so cliche, but it really was lovely to kind of talk and revisit some great memories.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming on and for letting us hear your stories and swapping everything with us. And we're so glad that we got to chat with you guys today. Thank you so much.
Yay.
Of course.
So thank you all so much for listening, and tune in next time, and see you later.
Bye.
Bye.